Win big with new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all three past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Hi everyone, David Aragona here with another edition of the TimeformUS Road to the Derby series. Three major final prep races on tap this weekend in New York, California, and Kentucky, and that's what we're going to focus in this video. The Grade 1 Bluegrass Stakes at Keeneland on Saturday, going the 9 furlong distance for 3-year-olds. A field of 11 signed on for this prep, which offers 100 Kentucky Derby qualifying points to the winner of this race. And one of the top contenders for the Kentucky Derby in this field, the number 10 Sierra Leone, who is installed as the 2-1 morning line favorite. Also in here is the horse that just nosed him out in the Remsen Stakes last year, that being the number 4 Dornoch. He is the second choice at 3-1, but plenty of others in this field with credentials, horses that have shown ability on the racetrack. So this Bluegrass came up one of the deepest Kentucky Derby prep races that we have encountered so far on this Derby trail. To get a sense of how this race might be run through the early stage, let's take a look at the TimeformUS pace projector for the Bluegrass. And it's interesting because it does appear that there are multiple speeds in this race, but not all of them are horses that need to be in front. I think some connections would prefer not to be on the lead with their horses. The number 4 Dornoch probably falls into that category. His trainer Danny Gargan had been upfront about the fact that he had actually wanted to have a target in his prior start, the Fountain of Youth. Due to some key scratches, Dornoch wound up on the lead by default that day. We'll see if Gargan gets his wish this time, and Dornoch does not have to be setting the pace in the Bluegrass, but clearly he is a horse that possesses plenty of natural speed and could potentially be vying for the early lead. But horses like the number 1 Top Connor have speed. The number 6 Just a Touch seems like a horse that could be on the front end. And even the synthetic horse number 8 Epic Ride has been a front runner in some prior starts, going shorter. So would not be a surprise if this pace does heat up. The TimeformUS pace projector is indicating a fast pace scenario, and that would definitely suit the horse with the LP flag over his chiclet. That is the number 10 Sierra Leone, who is the morning line favorite. Let's go through this field in post-position order, beginning with the number 1, Top Connor, one of 3 Chad Brown trainees in this race. And we'll take a look at his only start, his career debut at Gulfstream back on February 17th, when he got the job done after taking plenty of money to get bet down to 5-2 in this competitive 11-horse field. And you really had to like what you saw from this horse on his unveiling. Was professional, breaking from the inside starting stall, got into a good spot in behind horses, took some dirt in his face, handled it all very professionally, angled out of the top of the stretch, and as you saw in that replay, just mowed down the leaders to win pretty comfortably in the end by 2 lengths. Got a 103 TimeformUS speed figure, which is solid, but more importantly, he was beating a field that had already shown ability coming into the race. The runner-up Military Road had placed in that very live Conquest Warrior maiden race earlier in the winter at Gulfstream Park. Wistucky had run some good races prior to that. Others in that race had already shown ability. So Top Connor beat a nice field on debut. He's a horse that cost $1 million as a 2-year-old in trading. He's got a nice pedigree by Twirling Candy. His dam is a full sister to the multiple stakes winner Divine Miss Gray, who I think won nearly $1 million during her racing career. And Chad Brown is taking a big shot moving this horse up from a maiden special weight debut victory all the way into this Grade 1 Bluegrass. He had been contemplating running this horse in the Wood Memorial instead, which was coming up a softer spot, but given the large overflow field that was expected for that race, Top Connor, low on earnings, might not have gotten into the main body of the event. So he instead rerouted him to this Bluegrass where he was sure to draw in, drew a great post position down towards the inside. And watching this horse's recent workouts, I really like the way he's training for this race. Won't be surprised when he takes a step forward, and he feels like a live long shot in this Bluegrass. The number 2 is BU, also coming off a maiden victory, though he achieved this maiden win that we're taking a look at here in the 6th start of his career. So we already had plenty of experience under his belt, but he ran a fast race, finally getting the job done and earning that maiden diploma back on March 2nd at Gulfstream Park. As you can see, pulling away from this field through the stretch, like with Top Connor, he was beating a group that had already shown talent in prior starts. The runner-up Big City had also competed in some very live maiden events coming into that that race. Same thing for Jefferson Street, who was third. And BU earned a solid 105 TimeformUS speed figure for that performance. He's a horse that had run fast in the past, go all the way back to his career debut at Saratoga, where he had gotten a 107 final time figure, knocked down a little bit to a 103. So he's a horse that arguably hasn't really taken a step forward or improved much on that debut run. They've tried some tough spots with him after that, throwing him immediately into Grade 1 company as a maiden in the second and third starts of his career, trying the hopeful and American Pharoah last year. He disappointed, has tried to turn distances on a couple of occasions, including once against Grade 1 company. A little disappointing on both of those tries. Now he's going to try to stretch out again to 1 1/8 off that 7-furlong maiden victory last time. Even though he's a son of Curlin, I do question the distance for this horse a little bit. His dam was more of a one-turn miler, and watching BU's races and his training especially, he feels like a horse that has a lot of natural speed, and I wonder if stretching back out really suits him. The connections, they kind of have to try this. One last shot to make the Derby with a horse that is so well-bred and has shown talent on occasion, but I do wonder if he's a horse that down the line is ultimately going to be best in one-turn races. The number 3 is Seize the Gray. His connections making one last push to try to get the Kentucky Derby qualifying points to qualify for the Run for the Roses. He finished third in the Jeff Ruby Stakes last time. The points he accrued in that race probably not going to quite be enough to get him into the Derby field, so they're going to take another shot to pick up some extra points in this Bluegrass. He's going to have to take another step forward. He did run well in the Jeff Ruby, got a fairly wide trip for most of the way, was grinding on to finish third at the end of that race, and a blanket finish for that second place spot. He has taken a step forward since coming back as a 3-year-old, improving in a couple of starts, both going 2 turns. And it does feel like the son of Arrogate has been improving with added distance, but he's going to have to take another step forward, even from that 110 TimeformUS speed figure that he earned last time, and that was on synthetic. He'll now be switching back to dirt. Up next is the number 4 Dornoch, one of the favorites in this race. He is coming off a prep victory in the Grade 2 Fountain of Youth last time, where he delivered as the heavy 1-5 favorite. Now, this was a scratch-depleted race. There were 8 runners entered, I believe, and I think 3 major scratches of favorites outside of Dornoch, so he had a much easier task than it initially appeared, and I think he was a little bit disappointing to some, even in victory in this race, because it was a workmanlike performance. He had to be asked a little bit to get the job done over some seemingly overmatched rivals. He again struggled a little bit with his lead changes. He was hanging on his left lead in upper stretch before finally switching over at about the 8th pole. That's been an issue for Dornoch throughout his career. He's been a horse that gets a little bit unfocused through the stretch drives of his races. We definitely saw that too back in the Remsen when he narrowly defeated Sierra Leone. Arguably, he should have won that race a little bit easier, but he was again green in upper stretch, hanging on his left lead, bumped into the inner rail about the 3/16 pole, causing him to lose significant momentum before coming back to ultimately beat Sierra Leone that day. Now, he was riding a rail and speed bias on December 2nd when he won the Remsen, but still, that was a good performance. He did back up the speed figure last time in the Fountain of Youth, but I think it must be pointed out that the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place finishers behind him in the Fountain of Youth did come back in the Florida Derby last week, and they were all beaten around 20 lengths or more by Fierceness in that huge performance. So you have to call into question the quality of that Fountain of Youth a little bit. We'll see if Dornoch is able to take a step forward here. His trainer, Danny Gargan, says he only had him about 3/4 of the way fit for that Fountain of Youth last time, so we'll see if he's a better horse on Saturday in the Bluegrass. The number 5 is Good Money. He's another one of those Chad Brown trainees in this Bluegrass field, and he's probably the biggest price of that trio. He was a game 4th last time in the Tampa Bay Derby, only losing that race by 3/4 of a length in the end to his stablemate Domestic Product. But as you can see from that TimeformUS pace figure line, he really had everything in his favor from a race flow standpoint. Blue color-coded, extremely slow fractions every step of the way, and that really benefited him as the horse that was setting that slow pace. Not sure that he's really up to this level just yet. He is going out for owners and Calumet Farm who like to take shots in big races like this. So I wonder if he's a horse that really belongs with this Grade 1 field. He just needed to show me a little bit more. The number 6 is Just a Touch. We'll take a look at his most recent start when he was a pretty good second in the Gotham Stakes. In just the second start of his career, he went off as the favorite this day, bet down to 8-5, but could not get the job done against the other second-time starter in this field, Deterministic, who slices through between horses to beat Just the Touch. That's Just the Touch grinding away on the outside to ultimately get up for second. I thought he finished up this race decently after a good horse, Deterministic, got the jump on him in mid-stretch there. Just the Touch had shown a lot of ability on debut, winning in very fast time at Fairgrounds, getting a 109 Timeform US speed figure, actually knocked down a little bit from a 112 final time number, was a heavy favorite that day. This is a horse that had shown a lot in his morning training. He's a very impressive, rangy son of Justify. He acts like a horse that is not supposed to be bothered by added ground. He's got plenty of stamina on the dam side of his pedigree, his dam being by Tappet. So Just the Touch does feel like a horse that has been cut out for this two-turn mile and an eighth that he's finally going to get the tackle here. Again, appears to be trading well since the Gotham coming into this Bluegrass. We'll see what kind of price he is, but he does feel like one of the horses that has the most upside of anybody coming into this final round Derby prep. The number 7 is Lat Long. He is going to be a long shot in this race, going out for trainer Ken McPeak. We haven't seen him in almost over 2 months, actually, since January when he was third behind Track Phantom in the Lecomte Stakes. That was a fine effort that day, probably the best that we've seen from Lat Long so far. He had beaten Common Defense, who has since picked up some Derby points in the maiden special weight that he won 2 back. Probably should have won by even more than that 2 1/4 length margin. He actually got a little bit green in the stretch that day, pulling himself up a little bit before re-engaging and pulling away from Common Defense in the late stages. Lat Long just has to get a little faster overall and run against a better field than he's faced in some recent starts, because that Lecomte hasn't really aged as well as it seemed like it might have at the time when Track Phantom back in early winter looked like one of the best Derby prospects, along with runner-up Nash, that one since off the Derby trail. The number 8 is Epic Ride, and he is a horse that'll be trying dirt for the first time in this Bluegrass, and he really hasn't done much wrong racing on the synthetic surface at Turfway Park over the winter. Earned a big speed figure when he broke his maiden 3 back, getting a 111 Timeform US speed figure, going 6 furlongs, winning impressively by 5 lengths. Followed it up with a 2-turn victory in the Leonada Stakes, and then came back last time and did lose as the favorite in the John Battaglia Memorial, lost to a rival that he'll be meeting again here in Encino, but put forth a pretty good effort that day, took the lead in mid-stretch, and just could not quite hold off that Brad Cox trainee that mowed him down on the outside. He definitely is a horse that has ability. You see it in the speed figures. The big question for him is the switch over to dirt. His pedigree gives mixed signals. Blame, obviously, a very versatile sire, can get horses to go short, long, all types of surfaces, but he does have to try it for the first time. We'll see what kind of price Epic Ride is. I think I'd have to get a pretty big number on him to back him in this tough spot, trying a new surface for the first time. The number 9 is Mugga 2, and he is just going to be a big price in this race. He has primarily competed on turf and synthetic during his career, has tried dirt on a couple of occasions. Neither performance really much to write home about. Has finished off the board in both of those races, not getting particularly high speed figures. He would just be a big, big surprise in this Bluegrass. Then the number 10 is that morning line favorite, Sierra Leone. He has been towards the top of Derby Watch that Brad Free and I have been doing all season long, really going all the way back to January. He has just been one of the top Derby prospects throughout the season, and you can see why looking at his Timeform US past performances. He's just a nose away from being undefeated in 3 starts, was so visually impressive on debut. I think a lot of people felt that he might have been the best horse in the Remsen when he lost to Dornoch by a nose, making that big sweeping run from far back to just miss that day. And then his return from the layoff in the Risen Star last time was another step in the right direction. You can see from those blue color-coded Timeform US pace figures, that was not a race that featured much pace towards the front end. And Sierra Leone made that big run from towards the back of the pack to get up to win pretty comfortably in the end by half a length over Track Phantom. But more importantly, there were 3 horses that finished in the top 5 of that Risen Star that came back in the Louisiana Derby, and they all improved their TimeformUS speed figures, finishing first, second, and fourth in that race, improving their TimeformUS numbers by anywhere from 5 to 7 points. So really flattering the form of that risen star. Obviously, with already having 2 9-furlong races under his belt, there really aren't too many stamina questions with Sierra Leone going this distance once again, and he's supposed to get the right kind of pace setup here. He just feels like a very logical contender in this Bluegrass. And then finally on the outside is the number 11 Encino, another one going out for the Brad Cox barn. And like Epic Ride, who he beat in the John Battaglia Memorial last time, he is trying the dirt for the first time after 3 synthetic starts to begin his career. He's a horse that looked like he was just figuring things out in the first couple starts of his career. Had a bad start on debut, then was more aggressive in his second start, but got a little unprofessional, unfocused at the top of the stretch before his jockey really got into him to get him to finish off that race, and he was able to find more to beat that field. Then took a big step forward last time to cause the minor upset in that stakes event over Epic Ride. Covered a lot of ground that day from post 10, was wide every step of the way, and finished up nicely to get the job done. There's pedigree for this horse to handle dirt. He's by Kentucky Derby winner Nyquist, and his dam is actually a half sister to a Kentucky Derby winner in street sense. So pedigree says that he's supposed to be just fine on the dirt, but he does have to try it for the first time. He is picking up Flavian Pratt, which seems like a good sign, but there still are some questions with Encino stepping up against a really tough field trying to surface for the first time. Well, let's throw up my picks for this Bluegrass Stakes, and I do believe that Sierra Leone is the horse to beat and the most reliable option here, but I don't expect him to be much of a price from this race, so I don't think he's a great value option. I think Just the Touch, the number 6, is going to run well. I've liked both starts so far in his career, but he's another one that probably isn't going to be that big a price, even though I do think he has upside. I put the number 1 Top Connor on top. I just think this is a horse that might be able to take another step forward in just the second start of his career. I really liked his career debut, and I love the way he's been training since that race. And I think he could fly under the radar given all of the more high-profile options in this race. I don't know if we'll get quite as high as the 15-1 morning line, but I think even a price around 8 or 9-1 would be fair on a horse like Top Connor, who does have the upside he does. So he's my top pick in the Grade 1 Bluegrass on Saturday at Keeneland. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.